This is live from my office, and I got a fascinating guy we're going to talk to. If you're watching on YouTube, he would be the guy dressed appropriately in a tie. If you're listening wherever your podcast platform is, you know the deal. Subscribe, rate, review, and follow me there. And also on CochranShow.com, where everything ends up. Live from my office, Anything But Politics, the podcast. Substack is where I write. The guest is Larry Axelrood. Sir, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I was wondering if I should call you Judge. Is it weird when people don't call you Judge?
No, it's fine. I think that that's a title, and if you're in court, then you address the judge as judge, even if you're really good friends out of court. But in real life, I'm Larry.
How long you been on the bench?
I was on for 14 years and 2 months. I've been in private practice again, doing mediations and arbitrations. This is about 6.5 years. I'm in my 7th year.
As a judge, have you ever won an argument with your wife, girlfriend, or children?
I don't argue with my wife ever.
That's why you were a good judge.
It's my personal life and my professional life is different. My professional life,
sure.
When you're a judge, you don't even have to be right, but you're gonna prevail. So there's no reason to be nasty because it's going to be your way. And then if 2 of the 3 people in the appellate court say you're wrong, then you realize that only one of the appellate court justices is that smart.
There you go. Exactly right. I want to come back to this, obviously, is a big chunk of what we're going to talk about, but I am curious because I've sat on a couple of juries. It was an amazing experience. I'll do it anytime I'm asked, and was jury foreman in both cases. And every American should have to do that. But in both cases, one of the attorneys, I'll use a technical term here, was a giant pain in the ass and didn't seem properly prepared. And the 2 judges in the case were tolerant until they couldn't be. I imagine you could probably fill another book or 2, because we're going to get to your author side, with the attorneys who come in maybe unprepared or think they've got your number.
Well, judges have a saying, and that is every lawyer brings joy to a courtroom, some when they enter and some when they exit. And so it's good lawyers make the job of being a judge easier. Bad lawyers make it harder.
Amen to that. We will get into the court and the justice system, and is that a firewall for the protection of all of us in these dark days in America? But before that, you took a left turn, which I'm sure your family and friends told you as well. You always knew you could write, but you started writing books, and you've been very successful. Is Stealing Justice the latest?
Stealing Justice is the latest, and it's set in Chicago, as all my books are. And what happens in Stealing Justice is they tell a state's attorney to go in and concede on exoneration. And
okay.
She looks at all the evidence and realizes this guy's guilty. And she goes in and she calls witnesses and she proves that something is amiss with the state's attorney's office. And that starts a firestorm. And it's a look at the law and the intersection of politics and race and corruption and political intrigue. I had somebody that was a high up person in Eileen O'Neill Burke's new administration say to me, "I'm not sure your book is actually fiction." So I'm waiting to see what falls out of the tree now that Ms. Fox is gone.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because we all know our life experiences. And if you choose to write, and you do it very well, by the way, I'm a fan.
Thank you.
You can't help but have some of your life experiences come in. Do you have people regularly coming, "I can't believe you put me in the book"?
In the first 3 books, The Advocate, Plea Bargain, and Death Eligible, it centers around a defense attorney in Chicago. And in that series, those 3 books, I had people coming in and guessing who certain characters were, and they were all wrong. But my favorite part about that is all of 4 or 5 people said, "Oh, it's so-and-so." And then so-and-so came up and didn't see himself at all. He saw other people. So I thought, okay, this is good. Characters are usually an amalgam of people that have traipsed through my life at some point.
So where did the ideas come from?
Well, the ideas, uh, it came to me. I was a really avid reader before all this short attention,
The ADD
assault.
world.
Yeah, before that, I basically always had a book that I was reading, and there was one author, Robert Parker, who wrote the Spencer series, and I used to know when the next book was coming out, and I'd go to the bookstore that day to buy the next one. And I remember the moment it hit me that I should write something. I was in Area 2 headquarters, 111th Street. It was somewhere between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning. I was the only one there. I was working and in the dark, and it was the detective division. It was a big room, probably the size of 3/4 of a basketball court, full with
Okay.
desks. And all of a sudden, the light flicked on, and within 15 minutes, it was flooded with people. There were people being brought in handcuffs. There were detectives. There was one detective that came in and he had a rifle in each hand that had clearly been confiscated. And I watched this all unfold, and I thought, nobody understands what's
Sure.
going on. And at that point, I started it was in the late 80s. I started writing, and I got to a point where I had a book that was probably a good 300-page book, but I had been able to stretch it out into 450 incoherent pages.
Right, right, right.
And so
Somebody get me an editor.
yeah, and so I talked to a buddy of mine that was an editor, and I said, I can't write. And he said to me something along the lines of, there are countless people that can write, but they have nothing to say. You have something to say, and a good editor can make what you say the best it can be.
So I
And
feel like you've probably learned with each book then, right?
oh, yes, leaps and bounds. Absolutely. You know, as a trial lawyer, you do a trial and you think you did a great job and that you were really smooth, and then you get the transcript and you realize how many poorly worded questions or how many times you use a nonsensical utterance like huh,
Uh-huh.
and so you get better because you see it in writing. As you write and you write more and more, you get more efficient and you get better because you don't continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
There are people in all walks of life who believe they have a book in them. Everybody does. But the question is, are you ever going to take the time and the effort to get it out and get it on the page? Do you have a system? Do you write in the morning? Do you write at night? Do you contribute so many hours a day to do it?
I used to, when I was writing regularly, at different points in my life, there were different times that I did it. When my kids were little, my I would come home from work. I'd get home at 7 or 7:30. I'd see the kids, and then 8 o'clock, they'd all go to bed.
Right.
So I had the room to myself. So I would work into the night, and it was fun. Everyone at our age, Steve, you see your buddies, and one guy's playing guitar, and one guy's trying to do
Right.
stand up, and one guy's
Right.
painting or whatever. Um, I had this interest, and it hit me in my late 20s where I said, I can do this. And I consider myself a storyteller more than a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, great writers are storytellers.
right, but great writers can tell their stories, and they can execute putting those stories into written word better than I can. But so it's a little bit of a struggle to actually write it and go through the editorial process. But telling the story, knowing the story, that's the easiest part for me.
Your books read like a Netflix miniseries. I'm sure you wouldn't argue if somebody bought them and made them into those. Do those discussions take place, or you still got to write a couple more?
I don't know that you have to get a lucky break. And I had, for a book that I wrote in the early 2000s, I had a meeting at Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was absolutely absurd. Um, I was
I've been in
there.
those meetings.
Well, okay, mine had like 5 children
Mm-hmm.
around the table,
Yep.
And
And they all had a good idea. Just ask them.
they all had an idea to make my work better.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that was agenting me, that was at the meeting with me, we sat through and listened to them, and they said, "We'll give you notes." And they gave me notes, and they wanted me to add 4 characters.
Oh, just 4.
4 to the prosecutor's office. One was the biggest cholo's brother. And I said, we don't have cholos. That's a Los Angeles,
Yeah, it's a
California
SoCal
term.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So we don't have that. They, well, who sells drugs? I said, drug gangs. Okay, then that, a Hispanic drug gang guy. Okay. Then the black guy who's on parole for murder, who went to law school in the joint, and now is a prosecutor.
Sure.
The U.S. Senator from Illinois, the Republican U.S. Senator from Illinois, his daughter in the state's attorney's office instead of the U.S. attorney's office, because he wants to be able to say he's a man of the people when he's running for re-election. And then finally, the drunken Irish guy who's
Wow.
knocked down, and this is his very last chance. So,
Wow.
so the
Hey,
guy
were you
was
going to
working
change
with,
the title of the book to Cliches?
no, I was going to take my name off the title,
There you go.
off of it. But I told the guy after I did the rewrite, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "This is terrible, and I don't want my name associated with it."
Good for
So
you.
he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "They didn't read anything that I gave them. Send them the original one again." And he goes, "No, if we do that, we're in I said, "No, they didn't read it." So I talked them into sending the original one again, and they sent back notes saying, "This is so much better, vast improvement." So that was my experience.
There's Hollywood right
Yep.
there.
Yep. So and nobody was a decision maker. They all worked for decision makers.
Sure.
It was just a wasted day. But I did
Checking
get
boxes in their day.
I did get to walk through the Warner Brothers lot, and at the time we were walking through, and there was they said, "Oh, this is where we film such and such," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I never saw the show, but it was. Recently I saw a rerun, and I go, "Oh, I walked through that lot once." But that yes, it would be great if somebody recognized it. I think that what I learned with Warner Brothers is no one wants to take a chance. They'd rather fail with something which is just like, Hill Street Blues
Yeah.
meets MASH or something, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd rather fail with that than saying, well, this is something that's actually unique. One of the children was giving me in the Warner Brothers meeting was saying something to me, and I said, "Have you ever been to Chicago?" "No." "You ever been in a police station? Ever been in an emergency
No.
room interviewing someone that's been shot or stabbed?" And I
No.
go through all this. No, 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 no. And then they said that one of my characters wasn't street enough. And I was like, okay,
Because I watch a lot of TV, and I know, what's
Yeah.
funny about that too is, you and I don't know each other well, but I do know you well enough to say, um, I don't think you have a great poker face when you're aggravated. So is your agent kicking you under the table to just get through the meeting?
I was more, I was newer at it than I
Okay.
was now. I got a guy that claimed he was a producer that asked me if I'd be interested in doing a movie on a book out of one of my books, and I said, of course I would. Send me a contract or an option or something. And he goes, well, what I'm really looking for is to change your protagonist to a woman, and then all these other things. And I said, it's kind of like a car. You want to paint it green, buy it first, and then you do whatever you want with it.
100%.
So
100%.
I don't know. I mean, in Stealing Justice, I have a lot of really strong women that are, but I also have, and it's not diversity for the sake of diversity. It's what is currently happening in Cook County. So it looks real because it is real. And I
Well, the
based it
crime,
on,
and it's interesting you say that, because the one thing that jumped out for me was the crime and the frustration for all of the characters feels very real.
yes.
It doesn't feel like a TV show. It feels like, yeah, that happened. And that's not easy to do as a writer, and it's not easy to do as a fiction writer.
I've had some Chicago cops really reach out to me and say thank you for writing this book, because it explains some of the things that they're going through that nobody considers.
Yep.
And it also explains the whole cottage industry of wrongful conviction lawsuits, and there was a number of instances where the people that were trying to get someone exonerated used the tactics that they complained about the state using in getting a conviction in the first place. They lied to witnesses. In one case, they created phony interviews on video and showed it to people to get them to, coerce them into making certain statements, threaten people, bribe people. These are things that have been documented that happened. And I think that what's happened is we've gone from, and there still are a lot of people that are deeply committed to making sure that wrongs are corrected, but there's also kind of a money rush, gold rush. And so when you get that, you attract certain characters that will do whatever they can because they think that they can make millions of dollars. And in the book Stealing Justice, the name of it comes from one of the characters that said, I used to try and thwart justice, and then I tried to kind of cheat justice, and I just got to the point where I was buying justice, and now I'm just stealing it. Something along those lines. And that's where the title comes from.
Well, and where it crosses over into the truth is the world now, which feels in America like fiction. The inarguable points are these: you've got a president of the United States who's power mad, power hungry, and not being stopped by anyone. You've got a completely ineffectual Congress. The far left and the far right are the problem. They're not the solutions. A House of Representatives with it's entirely rudderless and at the serving at the will of the president. That's not the structure, not the way it's supposed to work. And a Senate that can't get anything done. So, we keep going, okay, if they're not going to protect us, who is? The Supreme Court certainly is not doing a good job of fighting the image of being biased. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was, with your experience and knowledge, obviously, is the court system something we can depend on? And if so, what level?
Well, sadly, the answer to that appears to be no. You have, all you got to do is look at Eileen Cannon in Florida, and
Trump appointed,
and no consequences for her obvious abdication of the rule of law, and no consequences to that. The Supreme Court, I don't think that many Americans think that the Supreme Court is going to be an unbiased protector of the Constitution. I just think that when you lose the moral high ground in that position, it's going to be really difficult because I think it was in the civil rights era where the Supreme Court ruled, and one of the governors said, okay, how are they going to enforce that? The Supreme Court doesn't have an army. And what you have now it's just absolutely absurd what's going on. I had a buddy, Mexican American, who his father was a doctor, a medical doctor, and they were not. His father was an immigrant, but they were not poor working. They were affluent, professional, educated people. And he used to tell me that they're Mexicans, not Mexicans, to the working people. And what you see is they were going to go after the worst of the worst, but what they're really doing is they're grabbing landscapers and roofers and nannies, people that are working. They destroyed, there's no farmhands in all these agricultural areas that were dependent on migrant workers. There's going to be a day where you're not going to be able to get your fruit or your vegetables, or it's going to be exorbitant, or it's going to be imported.
Well, and
Uh,
how about the idea that the United States Senate likes to go to Georgetown to a nice steakhouse after a long day of doing nothing in Congress, and they're going to have to start bussing their own table because the hardworking busboy who's worked there forever, who may or may not be a citizen, but in fact is paid into the system as the majority of immigrants, label them however you want, have. The threat that's been blown up is completely nonsense. It's unrealistic. Should we have an immigration policy that works? Of course we should. We should also have a tax policy that works. But you could take all the money from the billionaires in this country and charge them, quote, from the far left's point of view, to pay what they owe. You wouldn't fix the debt in this country because we have a flawed tax policy in the same way that we have a flawed immigration system. The idea is not to round up everybody. The idea is to legislate and do it right. So you correct me if I'm wrong historically, but I've never seen a time in my life where you've had to have more district judges stand up to the president of the United States and at least put a temporary stop to this behavior.
well, the president is being advised that he doesn't answer to anybody,
Right.
and the people that are advising him are not patriots. They're power hungry, and the fundamental problem is fear and hate. Uh, Statistically, there's going to come a time where Caucasians are a minority in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. And what you see now is, you said on the far left and the far right, there's people in the middle that are just disgusted because it's nothing but hate,
Yep.
vitriol, and it's crazy. I like what's going on in Portland because these people in inflatable frog costumes and
Right.
whatnot,
Right. Right.
they're the
Right.
ones showing up. And so, you know, that it was like the Gulf of Tonkin, wasn't it a false flag
Oh, in
that
Vietnam. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you know that they're looking for something like that to happen. But you shoot a guy in a dinosaur costume, it's going to be really hard to justify that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think that what it's lining up to be is to cancel the midterm election and then impose martial law in 2028 and just have him stay until he dies.
Well, that's my concern because I've said this before to others, but if he does survive these 4 years and whatever's left of America, and this is not hyperbole, kids. Judge Larry and I've been around a while, and neither one of us have ever seen this and the trends that this is on. This is a weekend at Bernie's. If he dies, they'll prop him up and keep
Yeah.
him in office to be a figurehead to continue to go forward. The Democrats can't seem to get out of their own way, but when we don't have any faith in politics, um, and you know the
Well,
judges in this country, the majority of judges trying to do the right thing,
yeah.
what do we do?
Well, judges have been ruling, and they always say, "Oh, this was a judge that was appointed by Trump," or "This was there was a judge that was appointed, I think, by Reagan." I'm like, "How old
Mm-hmm.
was that guy?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there is some of that, but then there's, they're ordered to do something, like they're ordered to pay the SNAP benefits from the money that's in an escrow
Mm-hmm.
account, for example. And if they say, no, we're not going to do it, there's no enforcement. The Department of Justice has kicked out um, career prosecutors, and they're trying to shape that into the president's law firm. And the FBI, what's going on is just unprecedented. Remember that when Nixon resigned, he resigned because the Republicans told him, "You did wrong, and we're not going to put up with this."
Yeah, you lost the Senate.
And that was why Nixon retired. The difference is, no matter what the president does, all these people will fall in line.
So, in the case, you just brought up the perfect example. In the case of a judge in authority ordering the administration to pay SNAP benefits out of billions of dollars in the emergency fund, and it doesn't happen. The traditional move by Trump and I'm not making this up, the thousands of lawsuits he's been involved in since the 1980s is wait them out, drive up my opponent's legal fees, wait them out until it goes away. In politics, especially now with the communications overload, the more you wait, the more information overload occurs, and people forget. They forget and they move on. And that's another part of this perfect storm, which frightens me because we need a critical mass of pissed off for this to stop.
Well, I think that one of the lawyers I had a mediation with this week got detained by ICE in Evanston yesterday, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," and I said, I appreciate you being out there to bearing witness. And she said, I'm just really angry. And I don't know what else it's going to take. The head of one of the top cattlemen in the country wrote a letter to Trump saying, "Hey, I supported you all 3 times, but I don't like what's going on here. We don't have our workers. We lost our contracts with China, and now you're buying Argentine. Was it Argentine?
Yeah, Argentine
Brazilian
beef.
Argentine beef, and you know, uh, it's so odd to me that they're surprised. Think
Same
of
here.
think of the people that were sycophants for Trump. Giuliani, he's
Mm-hmm.
toast. The pillow guy, he's toast. I forgot who there's another lawyer
Well,
that,
the police chief in New York.
yeah, they're all
Um,
toast.
there was a guy that wrote a book in the first administration. The editor made him change the title, but the working title was "Everything Trump Touches Turns to Shit." And the fact is, it's true that he has zero loyalty. Loyalty is a one-way street. And for all of these sellouts who think they're going to be different, he will throw you under the bus the minute he has to, as he has everyone else, which of course is right out of the dictator playbook.
Well, I think that as more and more people realize that they're not included in the benefits of this administration, I think it's going. I still don't. I'm not convinced that whether they change all these districts or not. I'm not convinced that there's going to be a big turnover because apparently hate is more important than almost anything. If you hate the same people I hate, then I'm with you, even if it hurts me to do so. My my concern is that the Supreme Court is going to find a way to allow Texas to redistrict while at the same time finding different facts to deny California from redistricting.
Right.
And I think that that's that's just, I think, the most likely, sadly, the most likely scenario. We shouldn't be doing redistricting. It shouldn't be happening.
Absolutely not. And,
And
you and I live in Illinois, and Illinois is a prime example of the 180-degree difference with Texas.
yeah,
The imbalance in this state where Republicans can't get elected and don't run is patently unfair to the system as it was designed. And to now go to this game where Gavin Newsom in California feels like he absolutely legislatively has to play the game and do redistricting in California long before the maps are supposed to be rewritten. Not only does the public not understand it because we don't teach civics anymore, by the time they feel the effect of it, it's going to be impossible to unravel it.
well, Illinois was approached to do something with their districts, and they can't do anymore. There's only 2 Republican congressional districts. They really, I don't know how you can get it down to 1, but okay. But so that's something that's not going to happen. But Steve, you and I remember Republican governors. You remember
Sure.
Mark Kirk, I think was the last Republican U.S. senator.
Yep.
Uh,
And a
and,
good one.
and so we had people, you know, Jim Edgar, who passed away recently. He was vilified by his own church because he was not anti-abortion.
Right.
And George Ryan, yeah, I mean, I understand all the things that he did wrong, but what George Ryan did, and that is lost, is he would bring the four tops in, and they would sit down and they would talk about their priorities, their legislative priorities, and George Ryan got that. I forgot what it was, a bill to Illinois or something. It was an infrastructure bill, and
Yep.
the Speaker of the House and the House Minority Leader and the Senator, the President, and the Senate Minority Leader, they all got their number one priority. Now, after
Right.
that, I don't know where anyone what anything got, but they worked together. And I know George Ryan went to prison, and I don't need anyone telling me not to say nice things about the guy, because he was
He was an
somebody.
effective leader. He
Yeah,
was, I would use the term good. He was a good governor, an effective leader. He made a terrible mistake and he paid the price for his terrible mistake. But it doesn't change the effectiveness he had as governor. And of
right.
course, the punchline about Illinois around the country is which governor wasn't in jail, because we've had a hell of a run. But
And the answer to that is the least effective one.
yeah, right.
That's the answer. Who wasn't the least effective one?
So, I mean, it really comes back to the system we know, and that is you've got to find candidates that are willing to run, that you believe in. Maybe it's you and you're going to
No, it's
run.
not me. Absolutely
And
not going to be me.
no, it's not going to be you or me. And you're going to support those candidates and you're going to find a way to get them elected. But you also, in the meantime, have to accept that there is no easy fix. There's no magic bullet, as you said, including the courts. But doing nothing solves nothing.
Well, I will say this: locally, I'm optimistic. Eileen O'Neill Burke
I think she's
won,
terrific. State's
and
attorney of Cook County.
now it looks like we have a chance of getting rid of Preckwinkle, who's the architect of chaos,
Yeah, 100%.
and she needs to go. And so that's those two steps will do more for safety for the citizens of Cook County. I spoke with a mutual friend of ours who who's deeply involved with the response to carjackings, and carjackings are down a tremendous amount,
Mm-hmm.
and it's due to two factors. Number one, they created a dashboard, so when a car is carjacked in Wrigleyville and they drive into Bellwood with it, it used to be like the old gangster Bonnie and Clyde movies. You cross the state line, they're done. And what they did is they created a dashboard, so instantly all the jurisdictions know that this car has been carjacked and
Yep.
we're in pursuit. And they have a helicopter. So
Yeah, and to give credit where credit's due, Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart and my old radio buddy Ro Khan, who you talk about interesting career paths. Ro Khan, not the bravest guy I've ever met. All Ro has done since he left radio and TV is do this amazing work with the Carjacking Prevention Division, whatever they call it, and help develop that program.
Right.
So,
He was the one that was, I said, our mutual friend. He was the one that was in charge of putting together this, I'll call it dashboard.
yep.
So now all the agencies are communicating in real time. And then the second part of it is they're prosecuting them. Under Kim Fox, they wouldn't prosecute cases. They wouldn't prosecute guns. They wouldn't prosecute carjackers. And you can tell me anything you want to tell me, but I know from hearing the stories from judges at 26th in California and from state's attorneys and from defense attorneys. And I know that these one coppers were telling me that they arrested a kid in Lakeview. He was 15. He did a carjacking, and they arrested him, and he was released without charges because he was 15. They arrested him the next night, the next night, the next night, the next night. Every night, same thing, carjacking, put a gun in someone's face, take their car. And they arrested him. And he was not prosecuted. And then on the fifth time, the feds took it. and said, okay, we can't let this happen. So what's happening now is they're prosecuting people they arrest for carjacking. They're arresting higher percentage of the people that are doing carjacking. And lo and behold, the jail population is going back up as a result of arresting dangerous people and keeping them. And you say, well, what about the bail reform? Well, the bail reform is to make sure that the only people that are held are people that are dangerous to society. And what we're seeing is, I believe that Toni Preckwinkle, that one of her main goals was to empty the jail as much as possible for financial reasons. And
no, there's no question.
For her budget.
100%.
And that's incredibly dangerous. And I look forward, hopefully in a year or so, whatever it is, to her being an octogenarian living on the South Side, afraid to walk to Walgreens because she doesn't have her 5 police officers in the SUV driving her.
Yeah, suddenly it's a different world.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that fits for her.
And you mentioned Kim Foxx. For people listening around the country or around the world, Kim Foxx was a protege of Preckwinkle, and Preckwinkle, with no concern for conflicts of interest, made sure she got elected. And she was not just part and parcel, she was the engine behind crime increasing in this city at exponential amounts. And we now have a mayor with an approval rate that's so below water, no one could survive. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I believe the last approval rate I saw was 6%.
Well, I saw something this week that he was about 30%. But here's the problem. But
my point about Kim Foxx and the mayor was, if a kid was black, you can't arrest him. And to take the cops in the city of Chicago, and God bless them, I've supported the police nonstop. And if there's a bad cop, get them out. But the vast majority of cops bust their asses every day to go out, do what they do, and they don't know if they're coming home. And for the cops to have rules like, we can't chase criminals and we can't act on our cop training and instincts to stop crime, all of those things, that's how you create morale problems, and that's how you have cops not want to be a part of the system. And that's another thing we're dealing with here. But again, the only way to change all of this, all this big pile of problems, the only way to change is to be involved.
Yeah, I think that some citizens created the CWB website, which is truth, because the media at large is horrible in Chicago at any. They don't have people that can do in-depth reporting because of the where we are now, the newspapers.
Yeah, the economics have changed.
Yeah, and I'm the only person on I'm the only person on the train in the morning that has a physical newspaper in their hand.
Yeah, they must wonder what you're carrying.
Well, I think that people are easily misled, and I will say this: when I was a prosecutor in the late '80s, there would be 900 plus murders a year, and we've had fewer murders than that, even though people are portraying Chicago as being out of control. And I'm not excusing or apologizing for anything. We have too much crime, and we have too much violent crime. There's too many people with guns that shouldn't have guns, and they're using them indiscriminately, and it's dangerous. And there's shootouts in River North and all those things. I acknowledge that, but statistically, there were, in the mid to late 80s, we had higher murder rates than we do now.
100%. Yeah, Chicago barely makes the top 20 in that particular grisly statistic. I hope you'll come back, because we barely scratched the surface. I hope you come back. And for people listening to us and go, oh, the 2 old guys really cheered me up. No, we're just trying to give you the facts and trying to fire you up to get involved and stay involved. And just remember, as I always say, a social media post is not action.
No.
It might make you feel good for a section.
I would invite anybody who's curious. I have a author page, LarryAxelrood.com. It's LarryAxelrood.com. Also, on Amazon, you could go on Amazon and they give you a sample. You could read 30 pages to see if you want to read Stealing Justice.
Great.
But when you read Stealing Justice, though, and you wonder, could this be true? I promise you that this is more accurate than the book that I didn't read, which is If I Had Done It by O.J. Simpson. So my book, Stealing Justice, is not only possible, but it's very realistic, and it's true. The characters are true.
And in a time of no truth, we could use that. Axelrood, by the way, is AXELROOD. Larry Axelrood. .com. Stealing Justice is the latest. If we want to get any of your books, where do we get them?
Amazon's the easiest.
All right, just go to Amazon. Larry Axelrod is a good way to search that and get it. Or just Stealing Justice as a title, and you'll see the others as well.
It's my name is I'm not related to David Axelrod. I got 2 O's, but either way, you'll find me.
Okay. It's great to get to know you, as I have in the recent past, thanks to our friend Jay Blunk. And like I said, I hope we can continue this, but thank you for coming on.
I'm looking forward to it. It was great. I appreciate it. And we are 2 old guys, but what it means is now that I'm no longer a public official, I can actually tell the truth. I don't have to say no comment.
How about that?
I appreciate it, and I'm happy to talk to you. And the time went too quickly.
All right. We will do it again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This awkward part that comes at the end of a podcast where you have to hang up, feel free. Hang up, slam your laptop down. And I'll be in touch as we continue with Live from my office.
Thank you, my friend.
So, anything but politics and more. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for producing Live from my office. Don't forget, you can go to cochranshow.com for everything related to me. Read my Substack for more truth. You can go to substack.com, search Steve Cochran, you can get it there. Again, link through my website. We're going to be doing new shows through the end of the year, even though I'm going to be on an all new left knee. I have knee replacement surgery coming up, but I'm going to play through the pain for you and for me, and check back again and again, and follow me on social media as well. Again, thank you, Ross Cochran. Thank you for listening and watching on YouTube. This is Live from my office.
Thank you for listening to Live from my office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.